Hello everybody, welcome back along for another update on where we are with football, getting it back, and how it's coping in this worldwide pandemic. Before I get comments, yes, I have just got out of the shower. I don't want to talk about my hair, but people tend to in the comments when I look like a drowned rat. But I want to get on with this video and get it out because there's a fair bit to talk about, a few extras from yesterday's meeting that we didn't talk about yesterday, the meeting of the Premier League clubs, some TV stuff, some player contract stuff, League Bowyer, League One, lots of stuff to chat about. So a little bit of extra meat on the bone from what I'd said yesterday, the speculation about the neutral venues being used by the bottom six club as a kind of, filibustering device to hold things up because they're at the bottom of the league. Richard Masters has completely debunked that now because he said all clubs would prefer home matches. He's also debunked the other thing about relegation, saying that no club has asked for relegation to be scrapped. So it seems like the Premier League are more unanimous than the media reported. How about that? Hey, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. So that's where we are with Project Restart now. Training, Monday the 18th. I know there's another Premier League meeting on that day as well. June the 12th, restart. Your guess is as good as mine. No neutral grounds is the plan. 5 subs have got the option to remove VAR. I wonder how many of those things will actually happen, especially in terms of the dates. The TV contracts, really the biggest thing in football, really, isn't it? Because it's the TV contracts that drive the massive broadcast money that make the Premier League what it is, and all the gaps we've talked about down to the Championship, etc., and the Premier League excelling in Europe, all down to its TV rights and the ability to export it across the world. Well, they're becoming a bit of an issue now. Masters said in the press briefing after the Premier League meeting, and it sounds like the Premier League is basically going to have to default on their contract, which means that some TV money is going to have to be repaid. He said we were able to update our clubs today on our situation with broadcasters, which is obviously confidential. Whatever happens, there's going to be significant loss of revenues for clubs. That is inevitable, so from a broadcast point of view. But in terms of putting an estimate on it, I won't do it. I don't want to do that today. Obviously, the BBC were happy to. They led with their headline of £340 million lost. No meat on the bone in their article as to how they reached that figure, though. Maybe they've just taken a season's worth of money and divided it by however many games there is left and come out 340 million. I'm sure it's not that simple. No doubt there'll be something in the contract on the amount of games that are going to be delivered, and it sucks, but there's millions of examples out there at the moment of people either having paid for a service or been paid for a service, and that service cannot be delivered anymore, and back goes the money, I'm afraid. So that's going to put the Premier League clubs a little bit out of pocket, but I'm sure there's a lot of nuance in how they'll minimise those losses. Interestingly, Sky have reported that Premier League clubs have voted to allow contract extensions for players whose contract deals expire on June the 30th. If you followed the timeline of this lockdown and getting things restarted, there was a phase when everyone started to talk about contracts when we knew it was going to go past June the 30th and contract Armageddon was apparently happening. Well, it sounds like they've dealt with that and they're going to allow contract extensions. Remember, contracts normally go that extra month up to the end of June, and then the transfer window would open on July the 1st officially, wouldn't it? So this seems sensible. Again, be interesting to know the fine print of the new deals. you would expect that players would get their, I don't know, will they get their same wage rolled over? Will it all be performance based? I mean, they've got nowhere else to go and play in the meantime, and the window is closed, and I'm sure free agency won't be a thing at this time. So I guess it's going to be the clubs wanting to, normal capitalism business, the clubs wanting to get the best deal, the players wanting to get the best deal, but probably more bargaining power on the club side, you would think, especially given that it's players who have been out of, and their contracts running down. They're never in that strong a position, are they? So we'll see what happens there. And with the endings, I guess it's going to be quite an open-ended thing. It ends when the season ends. So the Roy Keane view of a contract having a date on it, I think we might see a bit more wriggle room in the wording. Then a good move, really. Will the Championship follow suit? I can see them voting the proposal in. But in the Championship, you can see maybe a few more clubs saying, well, okay, we can give them the extra month, but we can't afford it. So maybe a bit of a different way it will play out in the Championship, but I can see them trying to get that proposal voted. I can see it happening, actually. Players at the end of loan spells can also extend their moves if all three parties involved are in agreement. So this is an interesting one. So at my club, Ipswich, literally the second we had Josh Earl on loan from Preston, the second that loan expired, out he goes, off the wage bill, etc. And they'll continue without that liability, money-wise. I'm not saying the player was a liability, but in the real sense of the word. An interesting one would be someone like Dean Henderson, who's on loan at Sheffield United from Manchester United. You would assume that he'd want to finish the season at Sheffield United. You would assume that the Blades want him, but Manchester United could obviously block it, which is interesting. Much bigger deal, I do think, in the Championship though, where obviously in the Premier League, the top clubs, they sign players, they bring them in as part of the long-term plan. Obviously, the financial landscape very different in the Championship. So you do see even the top clubs in the Championships now, they go heavy on loans, and we've seen that the past couple of seasons. Would Villa be in the Premier League without Tammy Abraham, Tyrone Mings and Axel Tuanzebe? No, they wouldn't. Important players. And at the top of the Championship, you've got Ben White, who always plays for Leeds, Grady Diangana, who before he was injured at West Brom was, along with Pereira, their stand-up player. Anthony Knockaert, who we know is a big money deal there in at Fulham. So top three clubs, all with strong players there. It would be really, really interesting if you had a situation where Brighton maybe wanted to take Ben White back for those last 9 games on the small print of it being past June the 30th. Be interested in Leeds fans' views on that. We'll see how that particular cookie crumbles. Obviously a good thing, the added flexibility. Will anybody use it for advantage on the pitch? Get your thoughts in on that one. Down in the Championship, Lee Bowyer did an interview with Sky. Charlton dropped into the bottom 3 in the last game before the pandemic. Indeed, I was there to see them lose 1-0 at home to Borough. You can check out my review on the channel. It was a long time since I've said that. Would that have been the last game I went to? I can't even remember. Probably was. Lee Bowyer has spoken out against the fact that they're now in the bottom 3 and they've only been there for 5 days, and that it would be grossly unfair to punish them on that. He said it would ruin us and the hard work we've all done to drop out because we unluckily fell into it for 5 days. I like Charlton. I like Lee Bowyer. I think he's done a good job. I was there at Wembley for the League One playoff final, which, if you remember, was settled in the 94th minute. So if you apply Lee Bowyer's logic to that game, well, Charlton only led that game for probably less than 1% of it. So sometimes it helps you, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, the answer is that they got to finish that game on the rules that they were presented with before it, and Bowyer obviously got the 94th minute winner. I'm being a little bit facetious. Apparently York City, a quick Google shows me, were relegated in 1998-99, having spent only 7 minutes of the whole season in the relegation zone, dropped into it at the very last. Again, I understand, obviously they got to play every minute of their season. If we reverse the logic, it would say that Charlton should not be relegated because of their short time in the bottom three. Does that make sense? I'm not sure it does. Been following the Championship all season, and we know that Charlton, they've been sliding pretty much since September. They won 5 of their first 9 games and then 5 of the subsequent 28 games. So it's fair to say that the first 5 games were a bit of an outlier, which has meant they've gone like that instead of, say, someone like Luton who've gone like that, or the opposite example of someone like Wigan who've gone like that at the last minute because they've won 5 of their last 9 games. Look, I get that people like Bowyer have been very, very successful in sport because they're hyper competitive. That's got them to where they are. But I'm not sure the amount of days you're in the relegation zone should really come into any judgments. And it goes back to what I've said on a few videos now of it's not fair is everybody starting position. It's not fair to anybody that a pandemic stopped the season 9 games out. So I get it, it's crappy, but it is what it is, and I know that's not going to be much consolation to Charlton fans. And yeah, worries with the new ownership of Charlton as well on the radar. So yeah, but I have to say I can't side with a solution that has the number of days someone's in a certain position. So there you go. In League One, obviously, get your thoughts in on what Bowyer had to say. Rotherham chairman Tony Stewart has spoken out. It seems a bit more cut and dried in League One, doesn't it? He said he'd be amazed if things don't get canned this coming week. We need a decision, he said. We need to get some direction from the Football League. They are our masters. We've been waiting patiently, and it would be nice to know where we are at this time. Interesting, he says they are our masters. Are they really, though? Everyone seems to be waiting for the knock-on from the Premier League that do seem to be the masters of everybody, but obviously I take Tony Stewart's point. He says the EFL are meeting on Wednesday/Thursday. We're led to believe something will come out of that. I just think that what we need is to get instructions so we know which way we are going. And with what we know from the Premier League and how hard they're finding it, and they've got way less clubs and way more money than the EFL, especially down in Leagues 1 and 2, does just seem a matter of time now, and we would expect just the final vote on League 1 and 2 to occur on Wednesday, Thursday, however quickly they manage to get through that. Whether they'll put the vote through on cancelling it first and then take some time to decide how they're going to resolve the table, I don't know, because that might elongate the process. I guess the argument is, can you agree that you're cancelling it before you agree what you're going to do with it? For those people who I know will comment and say, well, isn't the Championship in the EFL? Yes, it is. I accept that position that they should work unilaterally across the 3 divisions, but we just have to say the Championship, and again I'm going to mention them because of the parachute payments and the proximity to the Premier League, is a totally different kettle of fish than League 1 and League 2, and I think most of the owners have accepted that now, and most supporters too. So that is where we are today with everything. So get your comments in, as always, on Premier League. So they were unanimous on neutral venues and that relegations have to happen, not just the bottom 6 as was reported. The TV contracts mean that money's going to have to be repaid by clubs. That would really hit, say, teams like Norwich and Aston Villa, who've only been up 1 season and expected their slice of the pie, and they're not going to get all of it. So interesting. Players' contracts are allowed to be extended. Get your thoughts in on how that might work. Loan players, if all 3 parties agree they can be extended, do you think anyone's going to nefariously cut a loan short to harm an opponent? Some would argue if you're relying on a loan player from an opponent, then that's your problem anyway. But Obviously, the deal was signed on the assumption that you'd have them for the whole season, not 9 games. Sure. What do you think on Lee Bowyer's thoughts on Charlton's short stay in the relegation zone being unfair? Everything's unfair. Are we there on League One and League Two now? Just a formality on Wednesday and Thursday. Let me know your thoughts. Been really enjoying the feedback and the viewership on these videos has been terrific. So I'm going to continue doing the type of update videos. If you're new watching, brilliant. Welcome along. Get involved in the comments. I always do ask if we can try and just keep them polite, and if you do disagree with anybody, personal insults aren't really cool when we're just, you know, debating a little bit of football. Well, not even football at the moment, is it? People talking about football and trying to make it happen rather than it actually happening. But do get involved in the comments. It really is important at the moment, and you know, keeping us all sane and get a nice debate and a nice discourse never did anybody any harm. Lots more to transpire this week. We're Tuesday now, aren't we? So yeah, there may be something before the end of the day, in which instance I will be back, but likely we'll be waiting Wednesday and Thursday now for EFL meetings. I think the doctors are speaking and the culture secretary is going to speak on Thursday as well. So loads and loads of stuff to talk about. So fantastic that we're getting the number of views we're getting. I do apologise to the hardened Championship fans. We're talking a lot about the Premier League, but it does seem to be working and keeping the channel propped up while there are no games to talk about. So I hope any hardened Championship people understand why I'm doing it. Thank you everybody for watching. I will see you on the next video. Over and out.